Today I'm going to show you how to make a magnetic sign for your vehicle, like the student driver one. We're going to be using vinyl and a magnetic sheet. This video goes along with my post, the DIY student driver sticker decal magnet with free cut file. It's kind of a long name, so I'll just put a link in the description to take you to the post. It has all the information you need for where to get the files and how to make the files and some of the supplies that I used. So if you scroll down a little bit, you can see this is the link to join my newsletter. You will get access to my resource library. You can unsubscribe at any time, but hopefully you'll hang out for more freebies like this one. So with that freebie, you will get the printable logbook file. You'll also get this student driver cut file. So when you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get a link and instructions to come back to my resource library. When you download that, you'll get a zipped file. So go ahead and unzip that, and you'll see these 4 files in there. This file includes the PDF, a PNG, which is a printable version, a Silhouette Studio file, and a SVG. This one does not include the DXF file. Because it's free, I can give you the studio file. I made a whole bundle of student driver cut files. There's a link to that also. These are all of the different versions, and they're all broken down by category. You can create these in any pattern, color, glitter that you want. It also comes with the student driver cut file and the free logbook that's in my resource library. So today I'm going to do a vinyl on a magnet. If you don't have a vinyl cutter, or if you just want to print out one of the PNGs really quickly, I have another video that I'll link also in the description so that you can go and see how to print out one of these signs. So the vinyl is going to be one of the stick shift manual transmission ones. And if you open it up, you'll see there's 3 versions of each design. So this first one, I call it MT1. So manual transmission 1 is the DXF file. This is the PNG file. And this is the SVG file. Your icons might look different. I have Inkscape on my computer, so it's choosing the Inkscape icon for the DXF. And the SVG file will be most likely the browser that you use on your computer. So I have Microsoft Edge, so it's saying it's a Microsoft Edge HTML document. It is not. It's actually the SVG. Today I'm going to make this version. This is Please Be Patient, Learning to Drive, and it has a little manual transmission. You'll also notice in the different manual transmissions, I use some different ones. We're a Volkswagen family, so this is how the manual transmission gear shifter looks on that, but I included a couple different versions in case you're particular. One more thing to note, the PNG version shows you what the image looks like. The SVG version will have the layers separated. The DXF version doesn't have any color. So when you open these, it'll be all selected. You'll have to ungroup the lines and then select each group to keep them together. I'll show you what that looks like. So here's my Silhouette Studio. I have this set up for the magnet, but I'm going to open up one of the other files first. So we go to open, and then here I have the file folders. I'm going to open the stick shift manual one, and then it was the student driver MT3 file that I wanted to use. And I can also change these icons so I can actually see them better. Okay, so first I'll open the file. So just double click and it'll open up just like that. Not all the files have this one pre-assembled, but they all have the background and the other colors, if there's more than one, separated by layer. So if I click on this, they're all together. So I want to right click, ungroup. This down here is just a reminder of where you can get the information on the how-to, the step-by-step. So we don't want to cut that. I'll just move it to the side. And this one is just for an example. So I'm going to move that to the side. So this is going to be the vinyl color, and it's also going to be the size of the magnet if you're making a magnet. I'm going to rotate it so that there's less waste on the material. So I'm just going to rotate it 45 degrees. And then I can move it up into the corner of my mat where it will cut out the magnet sheet. And then this part of the design you can see is all separated if I were to move part of it. So I'm just going to select all of this, right click, and group. And I can set that aside as well. Now I'm back on my site. We already got the files, and then down here is the how-to. You can open a printable version to follow along, or just follow along in the post. So I have a list of the materials. There's 2 types of magnet sheets here that I put that you can find on Amazon, along with the thickness. And I want to put a note here. There's a difference between mils and millimeters. So magnet sheets and typically sheets of plastic are measured in mils, and a mil is 1/1000th of an inch. So 30 mils is about 0.76 or 3/4 of a millimeter. And then I have this one here, which is 60 mils, which is about 1.5 millimeters. So it's twice the thickness. The sheets I'm cutting out today are the Silhouette brand magnet sheets, which I've had laying around for a long time. And they're actually about 20 mils. They are a 1/2 millimeter thick. So when you grab the file from my resource library for the student driver cut file, if you use that, make sure you also grab the Perfect Silhouette Cut Settings printable sheet. This is a blank form that I use whenever I test cut a new material, and then I can write down the cut settings and I'll know what it was next time I try to use it. So something like magnet sheets I don't use very often. It's really good to have that sheet handy. So back on my site, gather your supplies. Today we're going to make a magnet sheet and we're going to do a printable version. These magnet sheets cut really easily with scissors or a craft blade or your Silhouette with just even a regular ratchet or auto blade I'm using for this 20 mil thickness material. Let's get started. First, we're going to cut out the magnet sheet. There's a couple different kinds of the magnet sheets that you can get. One of them has an adhesive side. So it's the magnetic on one side and this paper is covering the adhesive. And there's another kind that you can get that doesn't have an adhesive on it, which is just fine for vinyl. The adhesive one gives you another option as far as decorating it. So here's the sheet that you've seen I've done some test cuts here, and this is the one I'm going to cut the square out of. But first I wanted to kind of give you some pointers about working with the magnet sheets. So when you cut it out, when I did my test cuts, I used an arrow just because it's a fun shape to use as a magnet. That way I'm not really wasting the material as I'm doing my test cuts. So these two, the difference, so this blue star, I cut out the magnet. Then I applied a little piece of vinyl that's larger than the magnet, and then I turned it over and trimmed it out with an X-Acto knife to make it the same size. And you can see this one's nice and flat. And this one, I applied the vinyl to the adhesive side of the magnet before I cut it, and you can see it has a little lip around the edge from where the blade drug through the magnet material, and that's fine too. I just want to show you it can be a little bit different depending on how you assemble it. So if you want to put the adhesive on first, then I would recommend just cutting out a piece of your vinyl that's a little bit larger than the shape that you're going to be cutting out. Remove this paper backing, apply the vinyl to it, smooth it on, and then cut it as you normally would. I'm going to do the second version where I cut out the magnet, and then I'm going to apply that to my vinyl and then trim around it with my X-Acto knife. So there's lots of different ways. The other thing that's kind of fun about the magnet sheets with the adhesive backing is you can use heat transfer vinyl without the heat. So I have this roll of printed heat transfer vinyl that I got from the Vinyl Spectrum, and it's a really pretty space pattern. And I just cut a strip of the vinyl. I had my magnet already cut out. I peeled off this paper backing and I applied it to the back just like that. I cut around it, and now I have a really cool magnet. That way you can use any of the pattern vinyl you might have to make these student driver magnets. Okay, so I have my magnet sheet on my mat. If you're using a large piece of the magnet sheet, the mat doesn't have to be as sticky. If it's smaller, you want to use a nice and sticky mat and maybe even tape down the edges so that the blade doesn't move the magnet sheet off of the mat. So now I can go ahead and load this in my Cameo and we can cut it out. I have my Cameo turned on. I have the mat and magnet material loaded in the machine. I put a little like a lid under the mat to keep it flat so it goes in and out of the machine, just to help it a little bit. If the magnet material bends, it might lift off of the mat, so that'll just keep it nice and level. And now I'm gonna set up my cut settings. This is my cut settings sheet that I was talking about earlier. You can see the first one there is my Silhouette magnet paper, and I'm just going to use these settings in my software. I'm going to go to send. The material here doesn't matter since I have my own cut settings, but I want to make sure that my action is set to cut. I am using my auto blade. I can see that I have this red line, which means it's set to cut. I'm using the matte, so I have the matte turned on. And then I'm going to change my settings. So I have a blade depth of 8. So using the arrow, I'm just going to click until I get to 8. A force of 25. Speed of 3. And this could really be faster, but 3 worked fine, so I'm just going to leave it at that. It's going to take 3 passes to cut through this thicker material. And I'm going to turn the line segment overcut on. So just check this box and click send. All right, it's made the 3 passes. I want to just peel up the outer part and make sure that it's going to be cut through all the way. Let's see. With the magnet material, you can actually bend it along the cut line if you have straight lines like this, and it will break. Oh, I guess it peeled off for me. It'll just snap off. This one I may have sent for another pass. If it didn't cut all the way through, just leave it where it is. Obviously don't remove it from the mat, and go ahead and hit send again in the software, and it will cut again in the same spot. But this will come out just fine. Back to my work surface, I'm going to remove the magnet from the rest of the material, and this I can just tear off. Set that aside, and then, like I said, you can just fold it, and it'll break off pretty easy. Sometimes it just needs a little help. Okay, so now we have our square diamond that we're going to put the vinyl on. So if I was to cut out a piece of this yellow vinyl, the exact size of this, and try to line it up, it's a little difficult. So it's easier when I cut the vinyl a little bit larger than the magnet. So I have a piece of vinyl that I just cut with a pair of scissors that is a little bit larger than my magnet. This way I'm going to be able to cover the whole piece and then just trim off the excess, and it will be easier than trying to line up a piece of vinyl that's the same size as the magnet. So I removed the paper backing from the magnet. So I have the sticky side exposed. I'm going to remove the backing from the vinyl. I'm going to use a piece of transfer tape to apply it to the top of my vinyl. A large piece like this you could probably just do without, but the transfer tape helps hold it shape and helps prevent air bubbles. So, okay, so I'm going to remove the backing on the vinyl, and I'm going to place it on the sticky side of the magnet. If your magnet doesn't have an adhesive side, make sure you test the magnet on a metallic surface. Magnets do tend to have a side that is stronger, so you want to put your vinyl or any decoration on the side that doesn't stick to the metal as well. And then you want to work from one side to the other, smoothing it down to help prevent air bubbles. If you do get a few air bubbles, they should work their way out eventually. And then we're going to remove the transfer tape. And save that. Okay. Something to note that the applying vinyl to the magnet will change the color slightly. You can see this looks a little lighter and brighter, and this one, the magnet shows through just a little bit, so keep that in mind with the colors that you choose. Okay, so now we're going to turn this over. I'm just going to grab my my craft knife and just trim off the excess vinyl. All right, we have our diamond shape. Cutting the other colors are the same as the first one. You just position it on your mat. I'm going to leave this one in a diamond shape because the letters I think might cut easier. If I turn it like the other one, then the blade will be cutting the letters at an angle, and I don't know if that would cause any problems. So I'm just going to leave this design how it is. My tip for cutting small letters with a Silhouette Cameo is to use a low blade as low as possible. If you can get your vinyl to cut all the way through with a blade 1, I usually do blade 1 with a force of about 10. And you want a slower speed, like around 3 also, and turn the line segment overcut on. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Now I'll just weed off the excess vinyl. I started with the inside of the letters, and then the larger piece. So I'm going to add the transfer tape. And now we are going to be lining it up with a nice border around the edge. I'm going to use my mat to help hold the magnet in place. So I'm just going to press this down to the mat to stick, and I can remove the paper backing from the cut design. If you see if the design isn't sticking to the transfer tape, hold your squeegee over it and peel up on the paper to help you remove that. Okay, I have my design on my transfer tape. I have my magnet stuck to my mat here, and now I'm just going to line it up. You can also use the hinge method or place a piece of parchment paper between the vinyl and the magnet to help line it up. So I'm just using the 2 corners here to make sure that the spacing is as even as possible. And then I will smooth down the vinyl. And then I can remove the transfer tape. And there is our magnet. I hope you got some helpful tips on working with magnet sheets today or making your own student driver magnet.